How's it going? Been a few days. I'm sort of trying to keep a cold and sore throat back, so hopefully the ambient DUBBY tones will soothe my insides. I did this a few days ago. Basically, had some. Well, got the Mackie, and then wanted to quickly try it out, and just immediately just was able to create, it was really interesting just using the Elektron. It's the first time I've used it for a while with like a mixer. Obviously I've done that before, but I think since kind of hammering this machine a lot with the YouTube channel and just kind of getting kind of grips with it a bit more, and then having an additional piece of gear, this was the first new additional piece of gear. I mean, I'm using the Motu a little bit, but it's kind of like hands off, isn't it? So it's been the first time for a while, and my God, like it was just such a nice feeling to be able to kind of quickly navigate around the rhythm and not feel overwhelmed. So yeah, testament to just sort of only introducing new bits of equipment when it's kind of like almost way beyond the feeling when way beyond that point when you feel you should. I think it's easy to just kind of always want to put more stuff in. I need more options. I need more bloody LFOs. That's what I keep hearing. Whereas I don't know, like just working with what you've got, and then when you do introduce something, it's sort of like it's just such a leap in terms of especially if you've used that equipment before, but you're kind of holding off, and then reintroducing it. Yeah, it feels really, really good. Just so like the main things that felt really nice was being able to EQ stuff. Like, there's me just whinging about LFOs, but I really like EQ. So being able to kind of EQ like each sound and EQ, particularly like EQ the effects after the fact was really, really kind of nice. You can kind of do a lot in here, but sorry, I'm trying to multitask. I want to get some like nice little white noise stuff to just sit in the background. Let's just sort that out. Feel like the ambient's a bit too friendly. So look, what we got? Getting sidetracked. Yeah, like that just feels really nice. Just being able to kind of have the capabilities of EQ. Being able to just kind of bring up something very quickly. Like I think that's the thing that I miss most in this, is just not having the ability to kind of boost frequencies, and being able to do that is just really, really nice. And to kind of say, I want to just hear like this one, right? I don't know what we can see. Yeah, we can see quite a lot of the mixer in the video. So I've just got like the lots of bass cut off to kind of give that space, and then some of the channels have got like some of the bass that we kind of heard, this kind of thing, wherever it is. It's occasional. There we go. Just some kind of glitchy bass stuff. Being able to kind of have like different sounds EQ'd, obviously, right? Like, the stuff like in a mix or whatever. But just being able to hear like the machine, the rhythm beyond like beyond itself, like beyond just the box, and just kind of bring it alive and be able to do it so quickly, just being able to turn a dial is really nice. But yeah, like I said before, being able to go back to the rhythm and think, I just want to create some like bass sounds very quickly, and being able to tap them in really fast, create some, turn the bass up on the mixer. Might not be where I want to set it ultimately, but it kind of gets me to a point really quick. So I found this partnering really nice. Something I've got like the 16 Mackie, a couple of 16s of this kind of era, like early 90s. I think it was 91, 92, something like that for the 16, and then they brought out a few smaller ones, I think. I've got the 16, but it's just so big to carry around, and you've got like a lot of channels, and there's the temptation to just want to kind of root out every single channel from the Elektron, get it set up, and be like, right, I've got it all set up and I've got some more channels, so maybe I put some outboard, some delays and all that kind of stuff in there. So it's all like those options, because it's quite a big mixer, right? But with this one, just having this smaller footprint, one, it doesn't break my back or break my back even more when I want to carry it around. I think they do a little shoulder bag that you can put this in. You only have to select like certain channels really if you want to have the ability to put other stuff in there into the mixer. Like I've only picked some of them. I was getting this weird bug actually, which I know a few people have mentioned about. I was getting like certain sounds still coming through the main when they shouldn't. I've not noticed it on mine before, so it seems like I think it's like a global setting somewhere, so I've yet to check that. But the reason I mention it, that kind of forced me to be like, well, like, do you know what? I don't need every single channel plugged in. I can kind of select. So I was kind of playing around with where I might want, stereo sounds and how I might get a stereo feel that isn't just the effects. Like I was doubling up that kind of chord sound. But it was, I felt, I ultimately just landed on this. It was like a mono chord sound, and then using the effects for stereo, but it kind of works okay. Kind of thinking of live sets. This wouldn't be what I would play live, almost certainly, but it's too like a whole track. Like I kind of think I'd probably want to have like sections that I move beyond, or just one track that's a bit more intense that you can explore. Whereas this one's a bit more, I don't know. It's like it doesn't give me enough control that I want to change it too much. It's a bit of a set and leave kind of deal, and I like stuff that I can really grip into it. I was always a bit hesitant actually with the EQ on this Mackie because it doesn't have a mid sweep, and I do love myself a mid sweep. But you know what? I've been finding for the most part, like I can get what I want just with the mid boost. It's not the end of the world. It's not. It is what it is, right? And I guess that points again to that limitation. I love limits, but even for myself, who is quite used to embracing that and enforcing it on myself to quite a large degree, even then I'm reminded, oh, do you know what? I don't need a mid sweep. I can just make it work for what I've got. And just sitting with this small little footprint, like the biggest, bulkiest thing here is probably this big cable, like I could probably get a smaller set of cables. It's just really compact, and it feels like I'm looking. The other thing I found, it feels like I'm looking very much at the controls, and I'm in the world of creating the sounds with it. And I think that works well for this rhythm because it has kind of a bit of menu dive. It's pretty basic, right? But there is an element of like you can easily get caught up in looking as opposed to listening, especially being encoders. But I've got used to it enough now where I feel a lot more actually comfortable with kind of flicking around, especially if I've practiced a bit, like just get myself familiar. It's been a few days, so I feel a bit clumsy. But that and this, they don't feel too many worlds apart. Like this is immediate, this is not as immediate, but it's immediate enough that they partner well. So I'm kind of liking this. I'm just excited to take it outside as well because it's small enough. I wonder how heavy it feels. So I'm thinking about different cases and whatnot, and maybe an outboard effects unit because I've got like a couple auxiliaries. We will see. I'm kind of looking at a few options, but as always is the case, right? When you look on a bloody website to find something, you just ends up costing money, doesn't it? In terms of like what we've got going. I mean, I'll upload the project. It will somewhat rely on like some external EQ, but I think you can probably get pretty close, or at least, I don't think you want to be like, oh, I want to make this sound like it did on the video. I think that's just a bit boring. There's some good starting points in there, and with very little adjustment in the filters and stuff, or tracking it through your software or whatever, you can they're usable, right? So there's some kind of good stuff in there, but almost all of it, with the exception of the chord, is all sort of internal synthesis. The chord is actually for any fans of Silent Hill out there, of which there should be 100%. If there isn't, go play it. But like the Silent Hill games, like particularly the second and third one, first one's great as well, but the sound for the second and third one, there is there's a whole blog. I'll have to look it up and maybe link it in the description. But there's a whole blog if you quickly Google like or search, Silent Hill sounds. I think there's a Japanese artist behind it, and he's used. It's basically, I mean, he's obviously done stuff to it, but it's basically like a bunch of sample CDs from the 90s. So there's lots of kind of cymbals and like classic kind of techniques, of which my mind is blanking on, but like rubbing stuff and vibrating stuff and pitching metals and all this kind of stuff, running sound through metals, these kind of techniques to create some really abstract, surreal world sounds. And probably almost certainly due to the nature of technology at that time in computer games, they're kind of short loops. So I love the music in the Silent Hill games because they're very loop based. There's a bit of like 90s kind of trip hop beat, Asian guitar kind of thing going on, which is kind of cool. But a lot of the sound design is really, really good. This sketch uses a chord from that sample CD. They're like fifths and sevenths and stuff. Really, really nice chords, and that uses one of those. There's some really nice stuff in there, and you can kind of pitch it around, and it kind of sounds nice in one instance and sounds kind of crunchy in another. So I've kind of got that. I think I've got it like a bit distorted. Have I got a bit rate reduction, a bit of distortion in the effects, I think, and just kind of tried to find ways to crunch it up a bit. I think it's kind of, it's just looping around a little section, really simple. What else have I got going? And there's some kind of white noise, which you're hearing at the moment, which is like the hi-hats. Lots are spilled into the effects, and then I've got the ability to turn up the actual hats like on the mixer as well, so you can get this kind of wet and dry thing that I'm always saying I want to be able to do. Now I can do it, which is kind of why I got the mixer. Part of that, and the Mackie sounds pretty dope in my ears. What else we got? We got this kind of bassy sound, which I think originally was just using the effects, not the dry. We need to turn up this. So that kind of crunchiness comes from just hammering the effects a little bit. This is I can't even remember what this is. 2 notes. You can't see that off camera. It's 2 notes. 2 steps. Which is kind of mad, actually, listening back to it. That is just 2 notes. No, definitely is. There is some automation or some... Elektron call it automation, right? I do. There's some different trig settings in the effects section at different timings. It's on 10 steps, which gives it that more interesting movement. So you've got, if I just turn down the effects and just have the dry, which wasn't used as pan because I was kind of going to use it, but didn't. It's that kind of thing. And then with the effects, you've got that like more sustained feel, like the loop's like bigger but micro at the same time because of the 2 different timings. So got that. What else we got? We got what it opened with, which is back to our Mike Parker. Which I must say I really like. This was actually where I started from. I remember jamming just this BD Plastic, I believe. Yep, BD Plastic. Oh man, I could just listen to that all day. And then you can kind of, drive the delay a bit to get more clicks and stuff. So, and this is kind of interesting because you can kind of use the send levels pumping into the effects, and then the effects have got they're a bit of a higher frequency setting. So you get that sense of what was, quite muted, bassier, kind of dry sound. And then you can obviously change the mid, right? If you want to sort of make it drive a bit more, and then when you run that into the effects, you've got the effects that are a bit mids and highs. So So I like this because you have what I always like with I don't always do it, but a lot of the music I did with my partner years ago, we used to use like there's a bit of dub there, let's get rid of that in a minute. We used to use like bands of frequencies, so as opposed to like, and you get this a lot in a lot of videos and techniques on how you should or shouldn't do anything, which is all kind of a bit bollocks in my view, but there's often a tendency to want to fill out every single frequency band with isolated sounds that work in that frequency. I'm not really a big fan of that in terms of how I create stuff, but kind of I suppose that it's somewhat similar to that, but using a frequency ranges, but not as part of a whole, but as the whole. So like this is just the bassy area, and that's particularly interesting when you're exploring sort of track composition, because you can kind of have essentially one little loop that has the sound, maybe has all the frequencies in it, but you're only exploring particular frequencies of it at any one time. So you can kind of create progression and this sort of sense of this sort of illusion, or maybe not illusion, but actual sense of like elevation of sound or intensifying the sound, but all you're doing is just changing the EQ. And this kind of does that, but with the effects. So like I say, you've got the bass basic, and then you can just nick or like tickle it into the effects, and then the spill sort of gives that, for me anyway, gives that illusion that the sound has the potential to be broader, wider, more frequencies than it actually often is, because you've kind of been given like this is the footprint of which I'm only occupying a small space at any point in, if that makes sense. I think I wonder if it comes from like a bit of a confidence thing as well, and I think maybe a lot of tutorials help people with that lack of maybe experience, that there's a need to want to fill every frequency up, because if it doesn't have every frequency, then you must be doing something wrong. Whereas I think like just having like having a reference to it occasionally in a track, it just gives the listener, at least it does for me, like the confidence of like, this is the deal, like, not that you need that, but like you can kind of, I'm thinking like in compilations, right, you'll have like, you can have really abstract tracks in there, and they kind of work quite well because you've got like the overall listening takes you on these different frequencies. You're in a bass area, you're in a high area, because each artist or each person has got their own production techniques. I think using that within a track, certainly using less sounds, is I'm a big fan of that. So let's have a listen. So yeah, you get the idea. I quite like that. So that was kind of, I think, where I started off, or roughly where I started off, and then I just kind of, I'm thinking of, I'm thinking of different basses, like that bass we heard earlier. What's a good bass? And then typically for me, I think, especially with the rhythm, I want to like get into the details even of a simple bass. So I've got like step 16 and out of camera, I think, is another step. There's another step after it, so it's just a bass glitch kind of thing with a bit of spill and a reverb. Probably not the best bass by a long shot, but kind of building textures. But yeah, I think that's essentially all there was. Bass, yeah, that's everything. So kind of fun. I think this was from the chord and just changing something. What was I changing? Oh yeah, I was just kind of adjusting the delays. So that's where that crunch comes from. It wasn't distortion, it wasn't a delay. So let's turn this down, and you can hear the chords. Just kind of a crunch into the delay. And then I've got like a dry version here, I believe, which is very, very subtle. You barely notice it, to be honest. And it cuts out because it's all in the effects. But yeah, that's it. Quite nice sounding. I mean, like I say, probably not the sort of thing I'd like make, much, but very enjoyable to. I make much. I mean, I've obviously made it. I don't know. Like, do you have this? Like, there's a sort of bit of there's a style of music you create that you consider what you do, but then there's other stuff you do that you somehow put in a different box in your mind. I don't know. Maybe I feel like this is in a different box. I'm enjoying it. I like it. But I guess it sounds like other people. I guess that's probably. It feels like another world. It doesn't represent. It doesn't feel like me. I very much use this sort of sound as a very quick way of just getting into the equipment, getting my ear in, working out what the Mackie sounds like, you know, and having a combination of bass and chords and, you know, space and texture and all that sort of stuff, just to quickly go, well, how does this EQ work on these sorts of sounds? And just thinking while I create, this is the sort of sound I would create for that. But then when I want to sit down and do something serious, it would be quite different, which is probably just my mind playing tricks. Whatever. But yeah, pretty excited. I think the Mackie is going to feature a bit more in the videos for a while I work on a live set. Maybe we'll see. The only other thing, a few things, I guess there's some Syntact and Digatone videos that are being posted. You might have seen. If you weren't already aware, this is somebody else. So this channel isn't just me. There's a collection of people. It's mostly me, because at the moment at least. But there's as a group of us. Most of us work with sort of a label. If it's not the label, then we're doing other projects and we kind of know each other. And a few people have started to kind of do videos, but you know, everyone's super shy or busy with paying their rent or some shit. So not always the chance to get some stuff up. But yeah, the person who's making those has been really cool. So there's been some interesting sort of like dialogue between some of the videos I've been putting up, and then they've been kind of using them as starting points and trying to push their machines, which is really exciting because, you know, it's a constant reinforcing thing where you just inspire each other and try to get stuff out of your machines. So there's that. The other thing I was going to mention was completely gone from my mind. Yeah, it's gone. That's what happens. I don't know. Oh, I remember. There's been quite a few actually requests for the keyboard tracking videos. There isn't really a video that kind of specifically deals with it. And I'm not really into the idea of making videos that people ask for because, I don't know, it's just a slippery slope. But it has made me consider, I haven't really dived into it enough to really push it to its extremities. So what I'm thinking of doing, somewhat maybe as a compromise, but as a challenge to myself, is just to sit and try to come up with a variety of different ways that I can utilize keyboard tracking kind of from scratch. So, and right at the top of my mind, I can think of like the way the resonance works on the 101 I use a lot. So maybe sampling, I've done this before in other videos, but like sampling, you know, different pitches of the 101 and then using keyboard tracking to kind of scale through those samples would be one. Other techniques would be just using the internal oscillators. Others would be using drum sounds. I think white noise, thinking of global communication, use that a lot in their white noise, kind of more ambient stuff. Sample start movement for some stuff I've done and others. There's kind of a whole bunch of things in there. But the one that I haven't typically done is it's always been referencing the Google sheets that's in the description that has them all mapped out just to kind of spread it across. But I'm really wanting to just create a track live as a live set, and I don't want to be referencing a Google document for like accurate numbers, and maybe using less steps, like 3 or 5 steps or something, and to be able to quickly roughly know what steps where would have what rough frequencies might give me a rough sound comparison of keyboard tracking, but just done on the fly. So I'm wondering whether there's like, whether I just use the pitches that are in the 12 notes that are available on the chord mode, and maybe putting reference to what those kind of frequency bands would be as a label on the side, so I can quickly dial it in. Might be an idea, and then start from just they're all the same, they're bassy, and then slowly start punctuating certain sounds with effects to build up into something would be quite an interesting challenge. So if I could do that and it sounds good from the beginning, That'd be amazing, because I wouldn't have to like come up with a set. I just turn up and work it out as I go along, which sounds super dangerous, but I kind of like that. So a few things knocking around. Yeah, if there's anything else like you think I should be doing that that you also might be interested in, then like whack them in the in the comments and stuff, and I'll have a think about it, because I think there's, you know, I know how to use what I know how to use, but it's just so good when people share their knowledge and we can sort of work out what we can get out of stuff. Ultimately, if it, you know, if it saves us money and gives us a bit of inspiration, then that's all good. But yeah, I'm going to call it there. Nice one. Cheers for listening, and I'm going to have some water, because it's just so hot in London. It's just so hot. I'll catch you later. Cheers. Bye.